All right, well, hello and good morning. Welcome to today's adventure. I'm in Boyertown, Pennsylvania, and we're going to explore the history of transportation and travel here in Pennsylvania. I'm at Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles, which you can see where is it, behind me. And all the vehicles in here were manufactured in Pennsylvania throughout the years. So we're taking kind of a timeline of transportation here in the Keystone State, and have a couple other displays we'll get into. But this should be a great museum. It's a beautiful day out, so let's go explore part of PA history, the Boyertown Museum of Historic Automobiles. Let's go. Alright, so here's a little history of the building here. So this building was original factory. It began by Mr. Swinehart in 1872, and they made horse-drawn carriages, farm and delivery vehicles here, and some sleighs were built here. And then, after 1914, bus and truck bodies and other commercial and military vehicles were made here. Production ceased in 1990, but the original 1872 shop became part of the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. So this building here is the original building of the 1872 shop. Nice brick building here. So we'll go inside here and check this building out, see some historic PA transportation history. So, alright, so this room here is part of the Duryea Power Company. This is a 1903 Duryea. These are some of the first automobiles produced here in Pennsylvania, in Reading specifically. Again, we're in Boyertown, not too far from Reading. Charles Duryea, he was an inventor, and he started producing the Duryea Power Company, and they started making automobiles. This is a 1907 Duryea Baguette, and this was built in Reading, and this is a 2-cylinder 12 horsepower air-cooled engine. So you can kind of read that there if you want it. It's pretty cool with the horn buggy. So one of the first automobiles here in Pennsylvania. This is a 1908 Duryea. See a little history of this. This is a 2-cylinder air-cooled engine. So here's a little history. During the early 20th century, automakers were experimenting with the designs from number wheels to the power source, so vehicles were widely varied. Gasoline engines presented the issue of finding fuel. Of course, it's tough to find fuel. At this time, there are no convenience stations like, for instance, like Wawa, and gasoline was used more frequently as a cleaning agent than as fuel. So then the vehicle owners would have to go to the hardware store to get gasoline. So you couldn't just go down the road to Wawa to get gas. And owning a car was rare, just because they were very expensive, and many people didn't know how to drive. Driving was a very novice idea back then, so many of them didn't know how to drive. So owning an automobile was very rare. So, an uphill battle. It's about Charles Duryea's move to Reading. The rest is history. So, of course, some of the first modes of transportation here in Pennsylvania were horse-drawn carriages. And then this is a 1911 runabout buggy, and this was built by the Boyertown Carriage Works right here in Boyertown. See, that's one of the original horse-drawn carriages. So this museum is located in the former factory buildings of the Boyertown Auto Works, and they built custom truck bodies for commercial military use. In 1872, which is the same year that Boyertown was incorporated into a town, Swinehart began building horse-drawn vehicles in a small building across the alley from his house. He sold his business in 1884, and then the carriage went up to there. So there's a little history. You can read the rest of that, but it's 1911. Come a long way. Then we have here's the old West from 1827. These were this was built in Burnville, and it was William Penn's representative in Pennsylvania, James Logan, who recorded the first known purchase of a Conestoga wagon on December 31st, 1717. He used the wagon in his trade with the Conestoga Indians near York, Pennsylvania, and until the railroads came, the Conestoga wagon dominated commerce between that part of the state and the seacoast cities like Philadelphia and Baltimore. Yeah, so these were basically the tractor trailers of the day, because they could haul the cargo and people, and they were extremely heavy on the road. So yeah, so 95 of the vehicles in here were made right here in Pennsylvania. So you never knew Pennsylvania made so many vehicles, but yeah, we're going to continue to take a look at these, starting with the, obviously you saw the stagecoaches and the Conestoga wagons. So yeah, pretty fascinating stuff. And of course, before you had the automobiles, bicycles were made. Here's some of the bicycles they made. And look here, bicycles were actually used, actually made as a key cog in the women's movements. This is one of the biggest impacts of the safety bicycles had was on the women's movement. It is amazing just how one vehicle affected entire gender. The Victorian era was characterized by strict gender roles that did not allow for much overlap in activities of men and women. Each had their own spheres of influence, and really did they cross. But the bicycle broke down a good number of these barriers, and no longer do women have to rely on men for travel. They can leave home, allow them to participate in educational, social, and political organizations. And while women before had been able to express their independence through horse riding, this activity entailed great expense for the boarding and feeding of the horse. A bicycle was a more accessible means of transportation for the middle and low class women. So bicycles not only aided in transportation, but it also gave women a lot more flexibility to live their own lives. They weren't stuck at home, and they didn't have to rely on the men or for horses. Bicycles gave them a lot more freedom, to kind of live their own lives. So yeah, not very, very history. I was thinking about that, but the bicycle was very, very instrumental in a women's movement. All right, so this was one of the, if not the first carriage that was self-powered, that you did not need a horse. You can see the mechanism there. This was built in Fleetwood. This was built in Fleetwood, Pennsylvania. And if you know anything about Fleetwood, it's very hilly, so it did not have the horsepower to produce the hills of Fleetwood. it was first powered with a steam engine, and then he replaced the original with a one-cylinder gasoline engine. It was actually banned from the streets of Fleetwood because of the fear of such unconventional vehicle, because no one had ever seen this before. A carriage without a horse. And he eventually built and installed the two-cylinder engine, which is what it has now. So, yeah, the first horseless carriage, which is self-propelled. All right, and then by the early 1900s, by about 1900, a guy by the name of J. Max Meyer, he began to design a horseless carriage with the intent to commercially manufacture automobiles. So that's when that's when they started eliminating horses from carriage. And then you can see this was self-powered. The driver was up here, and you can carry, people, cargo back here. This was the first. This was the very beginning of the commercially manufactured vehicles, where you moving more from less from horse and buggy to more self-operating vehicles. And this vehicle here is a 1910 version of the J. Max Meyer motor tractor. All right, and believe it or not, from 1909 until 1912, Sears actually offered motor buggies in their catalog, and they sold about 2,000 of them. There was some assembly required, and it did include a couple gallons of gas. But yeah, so if you lived in 1908 to 1912, you could buy a motor buggy from Sears. And here's a little bit more information on it. From 1908 to 1912, the company sold a motor buggy. As its name and appearance suggests, it is a horseless carriage. It featured a two-cylinder gas engine, tiller steering, chain drive, and solid rubber tires. Sears advertised the motor buggy's economy, safety, and ease of operation, and claimed that child can run it. So, yeah, so this is a 1912. This is a 1912 Sears motor buggy Model R light delivery car. Here's a 1907 Dragon touring car, but I want to give you a look inside here. So, pretty basic leather seats, the steering wheel, and look at the dash. Pretty basic stuff. I guess that would be the time. That would be your air pressure, or maybe miles per hour. Over there, that might be miles per hour. And that's probably some place to store your belongings there, I would think. But yeah, pretty. That would be the clutch down there. That's probably there would be your pedals, your gas, your brake, and that may be for the hood down there probably. But yeah, pretty. Man, imagine riding around one of these. Alright, there's the back seat there. Pretty stylish, actually, pretty stylish. Alright, so fun fact, electric vehicles are not a new concept. This is one of the earliest electric vehicles. It is a 1919 Detroit Electric Model 71. It went 211 miles on a single charge. 80 miles per charge was the typical Detroit electric performance. But the distance of charging would become a hindrance to Detroit and all electrics on the market. Recharging batteries took much longer than filling a gas tank. That's a lot of the issues they are still running into today with the charger. Electrics appeal to women, especially due to their cleanliness in comparison to a gas car and the lack of a crank starter. Clara Ford, who was the wife of Henry Ford, refused to drive one of her husband's cars and drove a 1914 electric instead. So, a little history of electric cars. So this is one of the first electric cars on the market. Alright, so this is one of the first known refrigerated trucks. This is a 1958 Ford ice cream truck. You see, they haven't really Mr. Softy truck. Haven't changed too much within. They changed a little bit. They're a lot smaller now, but you can see the inside of the ice cream making facility there. Look at the prices here. You can get a chocolate nut sundae for 40 cents, banana boat for 50 cents, cartwheel 10 cents. Boy, it'd be nice to have those prices today. These are some of the heavier vehicles here. The army vehicles. This is one of the first mail trucks here. The U.S. Mail. The body was built by the Boyertown Auto Body Works. So they built the body here, as long as with the ice cream truck. The body of both these vehicles were built at the here in Boyertown at the Boyertown Auto Works. Alright, so these are old Pennsylvania license plates. So here's a brief history license plate. So they first originated in Europe in the 1890s. That's when they first had license plates. The first license plate was issued in 1906 by the state of Pennsylvania. By law, the serial number digits were to be 5 inches tall. The plate was to be 6 inches. The width of the plates vary in number of digits. And until 1910, these plates actually indicated that the driver, not the vehicle, was licensed. Following this change to licensed vehicles, rather than drivers, the words "not transferable" was stamped on a keystone-shaped tag, which was riveted in the license plate along with the maker's number. The maker's number was the vehicle serial number, and that is better known as the VIN number. So that's a little history of the license plate. You can pause that if you want to read the whole thing. This is a little history here, so slow down there. But yeah, fascinating stuff. History of license plate. We're gonna keep walking around here. A lot of great transportation history. There's too much to film, but a lot of great transportation history here in Boyertown. Here is a replica of a 1921 Sun oil company, better known today as Sunoco, and this is one of the 1921 models. So these started popping out. I mentioned earlier that there were like no such, that before they invented gas stations, you had to go down to the hardware store to get gas things. So these stations here, this would make it easier, but you have to go to the hardware store, and it makes it more convenient. So this is just a little, see the old-timey pumps here. That's pretty neat. You gotta crank that up. And then you come in here, a little bit of a, this is where the counter would be. You pay here, and then, you know, you can get repair or any stuff that's pretty small compared to not the huge, you know, gas stations such as Waterworks have today. Here's some old timey Sunoco stuff, lubricant, you know, repair kits, everything you would need. Old radio caps there. All right, this is what an old diner used to look like. Man, look at this. This is really old school. You sit down here at the bench, order some food. Yeah, this is the 1938 Reading Diner. This is the famous Reading Diner that for over 50 years was part of Fegley's family restaurant in Exeter. Howard Fegley operated this as a freestanding restaurant from 38 to 50. When moved across Route 422 and used it as a hub of Fegley's family restaurant. Fegley's closed in 2003. So they ended up to save the diner, and this was documented on episode of History Channel's Mega Movers. So you can kind of pause that if you want to read that.
The base of the diner now freed from the restaurant. The brace is 10 inches tall. The 45,000-pound diner sits on an intricate tie bar system in its undercarriage. The diner was built with these steel rods, which are critical in supporting its full weight.
That's what's supporting the floor. These tie bars and these bar joists are pushing up. There's a lot of pressure on these bars. If you cut these bars, it would fold in half and break completely in half.
The rigging crew places the first I-beam under the diner through a pocket hole in the foundation in the front of the building.
Down and out. There you go.
Alright, well, this was the old 1872 carriage shop here. And you can see how antique some of these things are. This is the Bechtelsville mail wagon. This was around 1870. And now you're really going back to the old West in terms of vehicles here. Yeah, this is the Boyertown stagecoach. This vehicle was built at this site by Hartman and Strunk, trained by the name of the Boyertown Carriage Works. And that's some good stuff right there. Here is the blacksmith here. Old-timey stuff. Alright, so a little bit down the path, you run into this awesome carriage house. These are some old school type things. Let me show you around here. The lighting's a little, lighting's just right here. But yeah, look at this. Look at all these old carriages. This is an Victoria carriage, about 1880. So this is really going back. Look at that. Old school type carriage. You have the thing there. You could probably put that on as a cover for the rain. It's 1848. This is way back. But these would still all be horse-drawn. You can see where they would set up the horses there. These are still all horse-drawn. These are the old school type carriages here. Look at that. I mean, this is the door you get in. Back seat, you can ride in there. These are usually the carriages you see in the old Western type movies. And then this one down here, this is your casket cart. So this would be used to carry a casket. You put the casket on there, and looks like that might have been horse-drawn too. You can see where they would tie up the horses there. So, man, lots of good stuff here. What is this one here? A 2-horse hearse. So this is a hearse too. So this is where you go to. This is similar to one they use with Lincoln. You could put the hearse in here, view the body, and this would go down, down Main Street, or across the country to tour it. That's pretty neat. So I was reading the guide here, and it says that today no major American automobile manufacturer builds hearses at the factory, and that includes General Motors or Ford. So how they make hearses is they are instead handcrafted by companies that take apart, bodies of existing cars and customize them. The largest manufacturer today of hearses is a company called AccuBuilt, which is located in Lima, Ohio. And the premier brand, the S&S company, has been in business continuously since 1876. One was leading in the horse-drawn carriages. So that's cool. So that I didn't know. I didn't know that none of the major car companies actually built hearses. They're all handmade from previous cars. So this here is called a skeleton brake, and this was actually used to brake, train, and exercise carriage horses. So before they actually got to pull the carriage, this would be used to actually train them, so they could know the weight, so they could stop, so they knew how to stop before putting on it. So that's pretty cool. I did not know. It makes sense that you would need to train the horses first before you could, actually put them on a carriage. Here's some of the sleighs that they also made too. Of course, these would be used for when the weather was bad and you couldn't get with the carriages through the roads, you'd whip out the sleigh. So these were well needed in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania can get some pretty rough winters sometimes. We just toured the fantastic Boyertown Museum of Historic Cars. Fabulous museum, a lot of great old-timey classic cars, great history of travel here in Berks County, but in Pennsylvania as well. So fabulous stuff. I highly recommend it. We're gonna wrap this one up for today. Thanks for coming along, and we will see you on the travel on my next adventure. Bye bye.